It is a great day to be alive, and I am so thankful for God, Jesus Christ, who lives in us. Today's video that is titled Elon and His Shadow, Finding the XRP Connections and Message. I'm going to be sharing two dreams that I have already shared in this video. It has been a while back, and the revelation that God gave me during that time specifically focused on Shiba Inu. Just recently, God brought me back to these two dreams, and now the focus is a little bit different, and I want to take this time to share this new revelation with you. Before we get started, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing that I'm sharing is financial advice. I'm simply sharing dreams, visions, and interpretations that I feel God has given me as it relates to crypto. Now, let's get into the video. So in this dream, I saw myself standing in a kitchen talking to my mom and my sister. I was trying to tell them that there was a cryptocurrency that was about to go up, and you might want to get into it, but they were not trying to hear it. Instead, my sister said, well, why are they neutering the dogs? There are bad people in this stuff. Why get into it? And so I told her, it's because the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous, and we will receive according to scripture. So as I'm standing there talking to them, I look over at the refrigerator and I see two magnets, and they were the eyes of owls. Well, one eye was up and one eye was down. I thought that was very weird. So I walked over to the refrigerator and I pulled them down to align them side by side. In the next part of this dream, I knew something about unemployment, and I knew it was the weekend simply because I went to check. I was about to check online, but I remember it was the weekend and I said, no, I'm not going to be able to see anything today. The dream moved on. I picked up my phone, and when I picked up my phone, I saw 3 sets of gray and black dogs. And this I'm calling pattern number 1. And so looking at these were the dogs that were being neutered. In the final part of this dream, I saw hot dogs on a plate. They were laid out in a pattern. I'm calling this pattern 2. It was a whole hot dog and a half a hot dog, a whole hot dog and a half a hot dog. And that was the end of the dream. Again, pattern 1, 3 sets of dogs, gray and black. Pattern 2, hot dogs on a plate. I've already stated that when I shared these two dreams a few months back in another video, it was focusing on Shiba Inu. This time around, God is giving me a little bit of a different approach. Instead of focusing on Shiba Inu the coin, I will be focusing on Shiba Inu the dog breed. So my sister in the dream, the one that was saying the dogs were being neutered, she's actually invested into Shiba Inu. My mom in the dream, she's invested into XLM. Also, something to note that their birthdays, my sister's birthday is July 12th. My mom's birthday is July 13th. So one day apart. And because these dogs in the dream were being neutered, I knew they had to be male dogs. So I know the conversation was about cryptocurrency. I know that I'm focusing on Shiba Inu, the breed, and it has to be male dogs. What coins do we know of that is a male Shiba Inu breed? Looking it up, I found 3. But here I'm looking at 2, Doge Coin and actually Shiba Inu coin. So I thought it was interesting that my mom and sister were in this dream, and I was talking to both of them about crypto, and they both are in crypto. And so I decided to take a look at their birthdays, look at the date, July 12th, July 13th. Is there anything historical that we can look back on and make connections starting here? So looking back at July 12th, my sister's birthday, there was news out last year about how Elon Musk donated to Trump's tapping fortune to swing 2024 race. Elon donates sizable amount to pro-Trump super PAC. And then a little fun fact I also saw where Elon, he has a pet dog. It is a Shiba Inu breed. So right off the bat, I see Elon. I'm looking at the Shiba Inu breed. Let's move on to July 13th, my mom's birthday. On July 13th, 2023, we know that Ripple Lab notched a landmark win in SEC case over XRP cryptocurrency. We were super excited this day. We were actually at my parents' house when this happened. And so my mom, she was all, she didn't know what was going on. And I was able to talk to her about XLM, get her into XLM. And so that's how she ended up investing into XLM. But I don't think that it's a coincidence that this happened on her birthday with XRP. Also on my mom's birthday last year, there was coverage about the Trump assassination attempt. It happened on her birthday, July 13th. So now I'm looking at Trump. I'm looking at Elon Musk. I'm looking at Shiba Inu breed. So will July 12th and July 13th of this year hold any more big news as it relates to Elon Musk and Trump? Or something to do with one of these Shiba Inu breed male dog coins? Which male dog coin was my dream referring to? Was it A, the Shiba Inu coin, or was it B, the Doge coin? Well, taking another look, there are 3 sets of these gray and black dogs. The black dog was a shadow of the gray dog. After praying about it and doing more thinking, I realized that this gray and black dog, the shadow represents Doge Coin, and here's why. If Dogecoin represents the shadow, then Elon Musk is the one that is making the shadow. Why? Because Elon Musk is the face of both Dogecoin and Doge, the Department of Government Efficiencies. When we hear the word Doge, whether it has to do with the government or the coin, Elon Musk is the face that comes to mind. The shadow and shadow maker, when Elon makes moves, whether they're good or bad, so does Dogecoin. And we see here how Doge began to make moves as we approach the day of inauguration, simply because everyone understood that Elon was going to be in position to lead the Department of Government Efficiencies. This news broke on November 12th, and as you can see here, the Doge chart, Doge price began to rise. And then we saw on January 20th, an executive order was made and Doge became a real thing. So now it's making more sense to me as to why my sister's birthday and my mom's birthday and the events that fell on their birthday, whether it was last year or in 2023, how it's pointing us into the direction of the White House, of Elon Musk, and then in the end, Dogecoin. Next, I want to take a look at the part of the dream where I saw the owl eyes. One was up and one was down. What do we know about owl eyes? Their eyes are set up in such a way that it provides excellent depth perception for accurate hunting. Depth perception for accurate hunting. What does that sound like? Sounds like Doge to me. So before Doge, or the Department of Government Efficiencies, before that came to be, our government owl eyes looked like this, one up and one down. There was a lack of depth perception. But when Doge stepped on the scene, the owl eyes were corrected, everything came into alignment, and now the depth perception for accurate hunting can begin. The purpose of Doge is to come in and find ways to cut regulations and spending, maximize productivity, and modernize information technology. So after a few weeks, after Doge was implemented, we started seeing articles about how he was investigating wealthy federal employees for fraud. Outside of that, a lot of federal workers would lose their jobs simply because they were looking into cutting back on spending. And this brings us to the next part of the dream, when I knew something about unemployment and something about the weekend. I was about to check my unemployment status, but I understood that it was the weekend and therefore I could not. Why is this important? Musk orders U.S. federal workers to describe what they did at work last week or get fired. This took place on the weekend, and if you did not respond, then you will be fired, aka unemployed. So I think the unemployment portion and the weekend portion of that dream aligns with this event. And beyond that weekend, we now hear this article is dated for June 5th. See that the U.S. layoff spikes nearly 50% as Doge-driven cuts take center stage. So now that we've identified the black dog as being Dogecoin, and we've identified the gray dog as being Elon, as he represented Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, we'll move on to the neutering part. Getting back to the idea again that when Elon Musk makes moves, whether it's good or bad, so does Dogecoin. And so we see how Doge rose at the point in time when Elon was getting into office and when the Doge department was signed in. And then we see how Doge began to slide as people begin to see the effects of Doge and what it was doing, people being laid off. All that came as a negative sentiment. So the dogs were being neutered, meaning that there was a cutting off of the dog's ability to reproduce, to bring forth a seed. And this reminded me of a seed coin. But putting the main focus on Doge the coin, again, is this symbolic of the cutting off of Dogecoin's ability to reproduce and to act as a seed coin? Now, as a side note, God has never shown me anything about Doge as it relates to investing in or as a seed coin. Now, this is not to deter anyone who has or anyone who feels that God is leading them in that direction. All I'm saying is he hasn't led me in that direction, and to just pray about it. So taking a step back and looking at the relationship between Elon and Trump before the 180 turn. Again, in the beginning of this video, we looked at July 12th, July 13th, and how each of those days marked an important time in history where something major happened as it relates to these two individuals. And now here we are looking at what their relationship was like before the 180 turn. What happens to Elon, good news or bad news, will affect its shadow, the Doge Coin. And so here we have this article dated on June 5th saying that Trump threatens to cut off Elon Musk's federal subsidies that could cost Tesla and SpaceX billions. So is this the beginning of what's to come for Dogecoin as it relates to this happening to Elon Musk? Before this news broke, Elon Musk had announced his exit from his U.S. government role in Doge, and we see that the Doge coin the price began to drop for this reason. It was already dropping due to the outcome of Doge and what Doge was all about: cuts, unemployment, people getting fired. Now Elon is exiting, and not only is he exiting his government role, but there is a breaking between Trump and Elon when it came down to the big beautiful bill. And so after that, because of their disagreement with it, Elon doesn't like it, Trump loves it. Trump then threatens to cut off Elon's subsidies to his companies for Tesla and SpaceX. And as a result, Dogecoin began to drop more in price. And I see this as a neutering of Elon and Trump's relationship. And again, asking the question, is this the beginning of what's to come for Dogecoin as we think along the lines of it being neutered? So as we leave the neutering of Elon and Trump's relationship, we're going to move on to Tesla. Of course, everyone saw the news about how Trump bought a Tesla from Elon Musk. But how does this tie into Doge? Well, for a while now, Dogecoin has been used as a payment method to pay for Tesla merch. If Tesla's company is affected by the cutting of Elon's subsidies, how will that affect Dogecoin? And just as it was purchased, it was given away, or as this article says, he's considering giving it away. And so not only does that affect Tesla in a significant way, it is also going to affect Dogecoin. So if Elon's Tesla becomes neutered, it will have the same effect on Dogecoin. Moving on to SpaceX, in the same way, you can purchase SpaceX merch using Doge. In the same manner, if these subsidies for SpaceX is cut, what type of effect would that have on Dogecoin? So again, because Elon has publicly endorsed Doge and has made it a part of his two main companies, together all of this could be what will cause the neutering of Dogecoin. And no longer would Doge be looked at as a coin that is able to bring forth a seed or allow investors to reproduce on their investment. And to cut a little deeper, because Elon's name is tied to Doge as it represents the Department of Government Efficiencies, because all that has been going on, because of all the threats that has been happening, it wouldn't surprise me if Elon wanted to separate his name or his face from Doge altogether. So with Elon walking away from this Department of Government Efficiencies, is this symbolic of him maybe later on walking away from Dogecoin for another? If Elon chooses to walk away from Dogecoin, obviously it will be sad times for Doge. And if he does walk away from Doge, what other coin would he connect with? What new coin will become his shadow? I have my thoughts about this, but I also have what God has been revealing to me all along about Elon Musk. Since the beginning, God has revealed something about Elon. It started with logos. I shared that in my very first XRP video. And as time went on, it became more clear that God was showing me a connection between Elon Musk and XRP. And if you follow my channel for any amount of time, you've already seen these videos. If you have not, here they are. Please feel free to check them out. And so I've developed this XRP key with indicators, things that I look for, whether it's in a dream or a person's birthday, things that connect to XRP. For example, Reebok logo looked like Starlink and SpaceX logo. This was the first indication that God was pointing me in the direction of Elon. But if I had to be more specific, August the 18th, I had a dream about 4 eggs, 2 blue, 1 yellow, and 1 red. And then the following day, August the 19th, we had a blue moon. And God began to show me 2 links. The third link I just saw a few days ago. The first link was tying together the blue moon event with my dream. The 2 scenarios that would give you a blue moon, I linked that with the 2 blue eggs that I saw in that dream. And as you see here, I have labeled it scenario 1 and scenario 2. So that was link number 1. Link number 2 has to also do with the blue moon, but also Kim Clement. The day that I had my dream was the same day that Kim Clement's daughter released his prophecy that many people believe, and also myself, I believe that this prophecy was about XRP. In the prophecy, he saw something that began with the X, something in the middle, and a P at the end. He also mentioned something about oak tree. Elon's name means oak tree. So on the 18th of August, I learned something about XRP through prophecy, as well as Elon's name, the meaning behind it. And because I had already tied the blue moon in with this dream, I also learned on the 19th that this blue moon is also called a sturgeon moon. And a sturgeon is a type of fish. I looked online and saw a description of this fish. And it talks about this fish as having an elongated body. When I saw the word elongate, the name Elon stood out from that word. So everything is tying together. Everything is linked. This is link number 2. In link number 3, I found out as I was doing my research the other day, as I was putting together this presentation, not only was Elon identified based on this sturgeon moon and connecting that with the Kim Clement prophecy as the meaning of his name means oak tree, I found out that on the 19th, someone suggested the acronyms of Doge as a Department of Government Efficiency, and Elon responded back on X saying that is the perfect name. So this is where the idea of this name came from. And this post was created August the 19th last year, the same day that the blue moon occurred. So all of this is connecting to Elon, both my dream, the blue moon, and also Doge. So this portion is new. You guys already know about this blue moon stuff and all this about this prophecy and everything. I've shared this in previous videos. However, I just did not know about this portion. This to me is confirmation. Elon will have some type of connection to XRP. And so completing the diagram from that dream, the eggs diagram, I know that the 2 blue eggs represents Elon, as I have originally shared that in the past. And now we're looking at the yellow and red representing a cutting away or a crash of Doge Coin. Again, I believe that Elon will connect with XRP in some important way, replacing Doge Coin. And when that happens, you're going to see that neutering take place. So that completes our first pattern, the first part of that dream, focusing on Doge, Elon, Doge as relates to the government, and all that's taken place between Trump and Elon, the cutting of his subsidies, which will affect Tesla, SpaceX, as well as Dogecoin, because Elon is the face for Doge. And so that will complete our first pattern, and we're going to get into the second pattern. But before we do that, I want to take a look at this diagram, this large diagram that I've been putting together, so you're able to see the connections between the 2 dreams that I'm going to share. One of them we've already gotten into, and then there's another coming later on in this video. So here's the diagram. It's divided up into 5 sections. I have a yellow section, orange section, green section, red section, and a blue section, and they're all titled. The yellow and the red section goes together because that's the one dream with the pattern. The first pattern we've talked about, the second pattern we're about to get into with the hot dogs. The orange pattern is about the second dream I'm going to share, the Wolverine claws dream. The green section has to do with the research that I did based on that Wolverine dream. Of course, the red connects with the yellow. That's the dream that we're talking about now. And then the blue has to do with research that we've already talked about in previous videos. So not a whole lot to say about that, just a small bit. So going back to the yellow side, we're looking at pattern 1 of the dog dream. We know that this represents Elon. We know that this represents Doge Coin. We know that we're looking at the Shiba Inu breed, and that breed is out of Japan. We see July 12th, July 13th. Again, we're just looking to see, listening out to see if we hear any news as it relates to Trump, Elon, big news that will come out on these days. You have your blue moon there as it relates to Elon's post on that day last year on August the 19th when he approved of the Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. We know that Doge Coin is the shadow to Elon Musk. We know that there's going to be a neutering based on the dream of these three sets of dogs as it relates to Elon and Trump, Elon and Tesla, Elon and SpaceX, and how all of these things connect to Doge, the coin, because again, Doge Coin is the shadow to Elon Musk. We have Doge, the government department, labeled with the owl eyes because they are looking into ways to cut spending and to better things in that department. And that's where I want to stop, because the second dream picks up there. We'll come back to the bottom of this yellow. Now let's get over to pattern number 2, dog dream, the red section. We're getting into that next. So I never really understood entirely what these hot dogs represented in this dream. All I know is that there was a pattern. And so on June 15th this year, I was coming out of the kitchen and I looked up and I saw that my kids were watching this cartoon, Pig Plus Cat. And when I looked up, I saw this. They were making patterns on a plate using sausages. Short, 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 long, short, 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 long. That's the song that they were singing. Of course, that's all to do with Beethoven. And so I began to do my research on this cartoon because I'm like, God, that is not a coincidence. That immediately reminded me of this dream and took me to these hot dogs on a plate. So I began to do my research and this is what I found. So this little PBS show had its debut on October 7th. October 7th. Very, very interesting that this cartoon came out on the day, same day of the month, different year, but it came out on the day that Hamas attacked Israel. Using this cartoon so far, God has brought me full circle to where he started out with me dealing with Israel war. And all of that was a part of my market crash timeline. So when I saw this reminded me of my October 17th key that has indicators such as Israel, the colors of yellow and red, collapse, crash, all those type of things. That follows that date of October 7th because it has to do with the Israel war. Moving on. I then began to look up this episode, Beethoven, because the sausages on the plate were put down in a pattern along with one of his songs. Short, 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 long, short, 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 long. And so as I began to look it up, this episode came out on November 4th. Now, y'all already know November 4th. When I say November 4th, the first thing should pop into your mind is XRP and Diddy. Of course, before the whole Diddy thing, Val, her birthday was November 4th. That was an XRP dream. Again, you have to go back and watch that very first XRP video to understand why, how I made that connection. But November 4th is Diddy's birthday. And I connected him to something with XRP, and the outcome of that was phenomenal. If you want to go back and check out all of those videos dealing with him, you'll see his picture. I shared that dream, shared what I felt it was saying as far as his connection to XRP. And as his trial ended, we heard a lot of things coming out about XRP. And I saw this post today looking at something that Ripple put out. There's going to be a Ripple Swell event 2025 in New York. And when is it happening? November 4th through 5th. Not a coincidence, an event tied to Ripple is happening on November the 4th. So now from this one cartoon alone, God has given me November the 4th. He's given me October the 7th. And these are dates and things that he has already been dealing with me with. So I know exactly what to label it, how to label it. But now it's a matter of connecting it to the beginning of this dream with Doge and Elon and the neutering of the dogs. But being that yellow and red is now representing Elon as it relates to Doge and Doge Coin, I'm looking more so at the yellow and red side of things. And as I shared in the past, God has given me a lot of yellow and red dreams. And it was just a matter of trying to figure out, God, what are you showing me from these dreams? Are you showing me MasterCard? Are you showing me the flower moon? Are you showing me China? Are you showing me Shiba Inu, the coin? Again, yellow and red represents crash. Well, what happened to the markets whenever the tariffs came out? China didn't want to cooperate and we just had a big mess. There was a crashing of the markets during that time. Also, the full moon on May 23rd last year was a flower moon. On that same day, Ethereum ETF came out and the Ethereum ETF was approved. Ethereum has always been tied to Tupac and the Ethereum flash crash. I made several videos about that as well. Moving on to MasterCard. This one was new for me. The Genius Act, when it was passed through to the Senate on June 17th, an article came out saying how Visa and MasterCard stocks fell. So the passing of this stablecoin bill is causing a negative effect on MasterCard. I've always thought MasterCard something in connection with the crash because of the colors and how I saw things in my dream. But this is confirming it. The only thing I don't know about is Shiba Inu. Back then the question was, well, God, does this mean that Shiba Inu would crash? But for the sake of what God is showing me now as it relates to Shiba Inu, we're looking at the breed, which brings us back to Doge Coin. And that is why I have connected Doge to the yellow and red eggs. So as stated in the title of this video, I'm trying to understand better, how does this connect to XRP? How does all of this with the neutering of the dogs and Elon, how does this connect to XRP? And I've given you my thoughts that Elon is going to pick up and connect with XRP, and that will leave Doge hanging, or more like falling. But what caught my eye is the fact that I'm feeling like God is leading me in the direction of Shiba Inu breed. Japan, okay, is there a connection there? And so then I begin to think about the news that we heard about Japan banks and how they would acquire or adopt, 80% of their banks would adopt XRP in 2025, where we're here now. And so I don't know if this is a connection in some way. Something else that was complicated to me was the fact that this dream that I think is about Elon and Doge is tied to October 7th, which represents war. So then I began my research to try to figure out that side of things. So again, this Peg plus Cat episode was about patterns. It was about Beethoven. And so I began to look into Beethoven. And the song that they were using, dun, 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 short, 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 long, that was the Symphony number 5. And it's known as the Fate Symphony. Why? Because the 4 notes, supposedly, is described as fate knocking at the door. Is this fate knocking at the door for Dogecoin? Is that what I'm supposed to gather from this? I also found it interesting that when it came down to Morse code for the letter V in World War II, the opening to this symphony resembled that Morse code. And it was ... dash. So now Beethoven is being connected to something to do with World War II. And also the opening to this symphony was sent off in space in some type of time capsule. When I saw that, I thought about SpaceX, XRP. I don't want to reach too much with that one, but that's what it made me think about. So now we have Beethoven being tied to World War II, and then the sausage that was being placed on these plates, they're known as a German cuisine. When I saw German, I thought about Germany. I thought about World War II, simply because this cartoon has already led me there. And I've already shared in previous videos about XRP, how God led me to World War II to know something about specific dates. And so that's how I remembered Germany. But not only did I remember Germany as being part of World War II, also Japan. That made me think about the Shiba Inu breed. So this Peg plus Cat cartoon has led me to World War II based on Beethoven and his 5th Symphony. And it's also reminded me of something about World War II, and when it comes to knowing something about Germany. And then here is that Morse code that sounds like the opening of those 4 notes, ... dash. That's the Morse code for the letter V. Now, I don't know that V represents something. I haven't figured that part out yet, but it's the Morse code for the letter V. And just as a side note, that short, 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 long reminded me of terminology when it comes down to trading calls and puts, longs and shorts. So I was reminded of that. So now we will head back over to our large diagram. We'll take a look at the red section, pattern 2, dog dream. That would end that very first dream. Again, it takes us to World War II, Japan. It connects us to the dates of November 4th. That connects us with XRP, that blue side. And it connects us to October 7th. That has to do with war in Israel. We're going to be more specific about how this war connects in a different way for this red section. And all this is being pulled from that cartoon that I walked in and I saw on June 15th. So we've covered all but the bottom of the yellow section for pattern 1. We're going to come back and finish out that bottom in a little bit. We've completely covered the red section, pattern 2. I want to move on to the second dream, the Wolverine claw dream. We're going to go there next. Again, I've already shared this second dream in this particular video a few months ago. But for starters, these are the two dogs that I saw in this Wolverine claw dream. Gray and white, black and white, gray and black. This automatically connected to my first dog pattern dream, but this is based on colors. And so that was a quick connection that I made. So in this dream, I was wearing Wolverine claws. Me and another person, we were shredding up paper and leaves and standing in the road, just having a confetti party. So then we decided to walk back to the house. As we approached the house, I saw these two dogs sitting. And for whatever reason, I knew that they were family-friendly dogs, nothing to be afraid of. Well, there was someone in the dream who did something to one of the dogs. And before I could tell them not to do that, the dog became very angry and very aggressive. Now, something to know about these Northern Inuit dogs, it says that this breed was supposed to resemble a wolf while possessing a temperament suitable for family life. So just like in my dream, I knew that these were friendly dogs, but someone did something to provoke the dog. And this is just telling you the colors that they come in. The color of black and gray stood out to me. Again, they're friendly dogs. They're gentle. They're not typically good guard dogs due to their welcoming nature. So getting back to the person, they did something to provoke the dog. The dog began to attack me. And so there I was, dodging paws left and right, trying to keep from being scratched in the face. And after I had done all that I knew to do to get this dog to calm down, I finally had to put him down with my Wolverine claws. After I put him down, he turned into this little girl. I felt bad, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. This part of the dream reminded me of the fact, again, of a family-friendly dog. These dogs are possibly looked at like any other person who loves their pets as a part of the family. So back when I was doing this, sharing this dream and making the video, I was looking for a Wolverine thumbnail because Wolverine claws was in a dream. And so while I'm looking for Wolverine claws, I came across this Wolverine movie. Now, again, back then when I was making that video, I was focusing on Shiba Inu. I knew back then that Shiba Inu was a breed that came out of Japan. And so when I saw the Japan flag behind him, I immediately thought about Shiba Inu. Again, this was back when I was focusing on the coin. And now, in the same manner, as I'm seeing this flag in the background, I'm thinking about XRP and the Japan adoption for XRP. I'm thinking about Shiba Inu, the breed, of course, and I'm thinking about World War II, because that's where it happened. We've already covered World War II. The little cartoon has brought us to World War II. And here we are again, simply because this movie takes place, flashes back to World War II. So I've explained how the first dream ties into this dream based on the dog's colors, black and gray. But how else does this tie into everything that we've talked about so far about Doge and Elon Musk and the neutering? Well, I told you that in the dream, someone provoked the dog and the dog became very angry and the dog began to attack. This lines up with the articles that I've been seeing about Trump. Of course, they're not on good terms. And so Trump says Doge is a monster that may go back and eat Elon. And this next article says Donald Trump threatens to unleash Doge on Elon. That's like telling a dog to go get him. And this final one says Trump threatens to set Doge on Musk as pair feud again over budget plans. So this part of the dream, this Wolverine dream, reminded me of what's happening with Elon, with Doge. Elon being the face for both. And to me, all this ties in together. So going back to our big diagram, if we go to the orange section, the Wolverine claw dream, you see we come down to Donald Trump, we come down to the dog, because essentially he's talking about unleashing Doge onto Elon Musk, which is symbolic of what I saw happening in my dream. Someone provoked the dog and the dog took off. The dog became very vicious and attacked. So now we've completely covered the yellow side, we've completely covered the red side, we've completely covered the orange side, and now we need to look at the research side for the Wolverine movie, the green section. That's where we're going next. So again, this movie is a flashback to World War II. When I was looking at the overview, I saw Nagasaki. And so I began to do my research on that. And I found out that the bombing of this Japan city happened on August the 9th, 1945. Again, we're looking at World War II. As I'm reading about Nagasaki, I come across Hiroshima. So I began to do my research on that as well. And what I found out is that Hiroshima was bombed on August the 6th and Nagasaki on August the 9th. August the 6th, that began to ring a lot of bells. Why? Because the Japan market crash happened on August 6, 2024. In other words, on the 79th anniversary of Hiroshima, the Japan city that got bombed, there was a Japan market crash that happened on August the 6th. I don't think that's a coincidence. And just as a side note, after the Japan crash August 6, 2024, on August the 7th, final judgment was made by Judge Torres in favor of Ripple Lab. So that was a win. Until it wasn't because of Gary Gensler. But just recently we know that this same case has come to a close. And that would have been on May 8th when Ripple Lab and the SEC came to a settlement agreement. What else do we know about this May 8th date? Well, on May 8th, Germany surrendered, and that ended the first part of World War II. Again, that's all in that video I did about XRP, and somehow I got connected to this World War II. So do you see how XRP is intertwined with World War II? So then I began to think, okay, well, what about the other Japan crash that happened April this year due to the tariffs and all of that? There was a circuit breaker that took place that was triggered. And so April 7th, I began to look back. And sure enough, in World War II, on April 7th, a Japanese battleship, Yamato, I'm probably saying it wrong, was sunk by the U.S. Navy plane. I don't think that this is a coincidence, guys. So for whatever reason, God is connecting XRP to things with World War II. We see the connection of how the red and yellow, when it comes down to war, how that connects to a market crash from over 80 years, over 79 years ago. You have war happening and a crash happening 80 years later. War happening and a crash happening 79 years later. I don't think that's a coincidence. So to me, that's more confirmation of how this yellow and red is tied to war, and it is tied to a market crash. Not to mention a crash of some type, because it could be an economy, it could be a government. But if we were to move forward to this year, to be specific, what do we know? How does this all connect? Well, we know on June 21st, the U.S. struck Iran, their nuclear facilities, and Trump compares Iran's strike to bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And as I was doing my research on this and on this movie in World War II, I was reminded of hearing Trump, when I heard Trump say this. And if you look there, you see his quote and what he had to say about that. And then, of course, after he said that, Japan had something to say about it. We're not too happy about it. But all in all, I think it is quite amazing how God has taken a lot from this second dream and has tied it to the first dream. It's ties to Japan, it's ties to Elon, it's ties to Doge, it's ties to war, and even a cartoon that led us to know something about XRP and the Israel war. So if we go back to our diagram, we have now completed the green section, again connecting the Wolverine movie to my Wolverine Claw's dream, and connecting that to World War II, all those happenings, and how Trump is connected in all of this in his own way. And so looking at this diagram, I see Elon connected in some important way. And then, of course, the blue section goes without saying. I've been sharing all along the connections that I've seen with XRP and Elon Musk from the beginning. And then I'm also seeing large connections of these things to Japan. So there are lots of indicators here that takes us to Japan, whether it's war, whether it's banks adopting XRP, the Doge Coin, of course, being a Shiba Inu breed from Japan. And I will say, when it comes down to war in Japan, I'm thinking something too along the lines of trade war. We see that Trump said 25% tariffs are coming for Japan and South Korea. We also see Elon making moves as he officially announced the formation of the American Party. So if I had to say, when it comes down to Elon and XRP, if I had to choose one of his companies or two of his companies that I think he may use XRP with, I would have to say SpaceX and Starlink, simply because that is how God began showing me or pushing me in the direction of Elon. In any connection to Japan as it relates to Tesla, I would have to say with what's going on now with Japan and the coming tariffs that are going to be imposed, it may be something there. This is just my thinking. Then I saw on the news where a major investment firm has come out to say, hey, he's hopeful that Elon will return his full attention to Tesla. And then he goes on to state the consequences to what it may look like if he does not. This is what I have. Please continue to pray for me as I continue to pray over this diagram. Pray for more clarity. Again, I believe that Elon Musk is going to take on XRP in some way, some major way. And I don't know if I have all the pieces here in front of me, but I have enough here to say that I believe so. And I believe it's going to cause damage to Doge, the coin. And again, I must ask the question, is this the beginning of what's to come for Doge Coin? That's all that I have for this video. Until the next one, God bless.